Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So, given that recently I've done a couple of videos about the price of sought-after cards, and given that those videos have proven to be somewhat popular, it seems only fair that we take a look at the last money card we've not actually had a look at yet. It's time to look at that big, bad, chonky Pikachu VMAX, specifically focused on the Rainbow Rare, but of course we will look at the other one here as well. Seems kind of rude not to. It's another one of those cards that has been seeing an awful lot of pub over on Facebook at the moment. An awful lot of people have been pulling it and asking questions about how much is it worth and all of that. And this seems like the kind of thing where I can jump in. Although I really should give a couple of notes here, which I maybe wasn't clear enough in my previous video about. Just because I give you a price doesn't mean you will be able to find it at that price. It doesn't mean listing at that price will guarantee a sale. And it doesn't mean that you will not find listings above or below that price. It means that based on the information I've got available to me today, this is the best estimation we can give of price at this moment, bearing in mind, of course, that prices are subject to change and do fluctuate rather wildly. But if you find a cheaper listing, it doesn't mean I was misleading you, and it doesn't mean I made a mistake. It means I told you the general price and you found a cheaper one. So, starting off, there are a few websites I think we can use here, none of which are endorsed by me. I am not telling you these are the ones to use. I am just telling you that these are ones that a lot of people do use and can often be used as a decent guide. So, going over to Troll and Toad, it's interesting to note that they've got Pikachu VMAX, the Rainbow Rare, listed at $325, but it doesn't really count. And the reason it doesn't really count is because it's out of stock. Which means that it either sold at that price, or it sold at a cheaper price and they've raised it for if it comes into stock in the future. So it seems like a very expensive card, but like I've said, it doesn't really count. We need something better. How about heading on over to TCG Player? Well, over on TCG Player, there is a single listing for Pikachu VMAX. It is $500. It's $480 plus $20 shipping. But there's one really important thing we need to point out here. Whenever there's only one or two listings, they become very, very difficult to trust. Because essentially, you can have people going, well, there's nothing here, I'll just try and price it really high and see what happens. There's nothing there correcting the market, so to speak, so you should always be suspicious where there's only one listing, because a lot of the time where there's only one listing, it can't really be trusted. So what do we learn looking at Troll and Toad and looking at TCG Player? We learn that people want this card. We learn that this card is selling out. Most cards, no matter how rare, are listed on these third-party marketplace sites. Anyone can list on TCG Player. A bunch of different places list on Troll and Toad, not just Troll and Toad themselves. And yet, between the two sites, there is one listed for what seems to be a ridiculous price that probably can't be trusted. So I suppose it's over to good old-fashioned eBay sold listings to try and get a better idea. Remember, you always want to be looking at sold listings, not actual listings, because sold listings are what people have actually paid, not what people are trying to chance. And if we take a look at sold listings here, it's a little bit all over the place. The most recent one to sell sold for $300, and it doesn't say that a best offer was accepted here, so it's probably fair to assume that it did actually sell for $300, which is clearly a lot of money. It's not $480, thank you very much, but it is still a fair amount of money. But then the most recent other than that sold for $187.49. Now, this was a Canadian listing rather than a US listing, but Clearly somebody, and what happens with listings like this is somebody listed it too low and somebody else bit their hand off. Whenever you see a listing that is sold for a lot less, and I've said you will sometimes see that, essentially what happens is someone who hasn't fully done their research lists it too low, and when they list too low, it's clearly going to be bought really quickly. That doesn't mean that this is a sub $200 card. It means that there was one person who listed it too low. Going on down the list, we got one that sold for $350, which is a little bit higher. We've got another one that sold for $300, although they did include the regular VMAX in there as well, which honestly for $300 seems rather generous. But that was a bid. That was one bid. It wasn't a buy it now. There was one bid. One person bid $300. Nobody bid against them. So they won it at $300. There was one from Australia that was the equivalent of $250, where a best offer was actually accepted. So maybe it's because the price is slightly lower in Australia, or maybe it's because they just listed it a little bit lower than they arguably should have. There was another one that sold for $300, which seems to be about the median price here. And then the last one we're going to look at was $546, but a best offer was accepted, so it was probably probably a bit less than that. And again, that seems like an outlier. Whenever we see that they're all going for $350, and then there's one here which sold for $550, we want to look at that and go, maybe it's somebody beefing up their own listing. Maybe it's somebody who didn't do their research and overpaid, or maybe that best offer was accepted at $300. We have no real way of knowing, so that's another one that I like to kind of strike off, so to speak. So if we look at them around, it looks like a $300 card. There were at least 3 listings that sold for $300, and although there were some slightly above and some slightly below, it seems like $300 is about right. So the listing on TCG Player is clearly chancing it. $500 is way too high. And Troll and Toad at $325, buying from an actual shop, seems about right, because shops generally do tend to charge a little bit more of a premium. So it seems to be about a $300 card. And it's really worth pointing out here, we're talking about a card that can be pulled from a pack that isn't a Charizard, which is nuts. $300 for a pack card that's not Charizard? That is weird, ladies and gentlemen. That is weird. Now, if we head on over and have a look at Pikachu VMAX, the regular, things are looking an awful lot more reserved, I think is probably a fair way to put it. Over on Troll and Toad, it's been listed for $36, though again, that has gone and sold out, so we can't trust it that much. Over on TCG Player, there are a few listings available, and they're in the kind of $30 to $35 range. Although, to be honest, with shipping, most of them are actually pushed nearer to $50. But there is a listing for $30, so I think we can probably trust that one quite nicely. If we head on over to eBay, and again, we need to check sold listings here. Sold listings are important. We actually see that even $30 might be a bit too high. We got a listing here at $22, but a best offer was accepted, so it probably sold for $20 or less. We got a listing that sold for $24. We've got one that did sell for $36. There was one bid on it, one person bid, and then they won it at that. This seems high. Maybe it's somebody trying to push the price up. Maybe it is just someone who didn't really look that hard. Either way, it's an outlier on the top end. But then we go down, there's one for $20, one for $31, one for $25, all of which were bid, incidentally. So it's interesting to note that some people have got really unlucky. Like, one got pushed up to $31 with 20 bids. One there, $20, one person bid and went and won it. But whereas we could rightly call the Rainbow Rare Pikachu VMAX about a $300 card, the regular Pikachu VMAX, $25 seems about fair, if I'm honest with you. $25 seems about right for this one. I know that it's listed a bit higher than that at the moment on TCG Player, but they seem like you can pick them up on eBay fairly straightforwardly for about $25. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Might not have another one of these videos for a little while. There aren't any other really money cards we haven't looked at yet. We've looked at the Charizards, we've looked at this one. But if there is a particular money card you think we do need to do an analysis video on to really try and determine the price, hey, my ears are open. You can get me on Twitter at @TheWassy, or you can comment it down below, which is probably easier if I'm honest with you. I'll see it. And maybe we will have another one. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know if you've pulled one of these. I want to know if you've bought one. I want to know if you've sold one. I want to know whatever you want to tell me about Pikachu VMAX. So go nuts in the comment section. But be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.